The emergency alarm screamed through medical station harmony. 7. Cutting through the quiet of the night shift, Dr. Juno Kim dropped his coffee cup and ran toward the landing bay. His heart pounded as he pulled on his medical gloves. Behind him, Hannah Park, the senior nurse, was already grabbing emergency supplies from the storage room. What happened? Juno shouted over the noise. Transport crash. 2 kilometers north. Multiple casualties incoming. Hannah called back, her voice steady despite the chaos. The landing bay doors opened with a hiss. Cold wind rushed in, carrying smoke and the smell of burning metal. The first stretchers arrived, carried by rescue workers in dirty uniforms. Juno moved fast, checking vital signs, making quick decisions about who needed help first. Blood, burns, broken bones. The usual nightmare of a crash site. He worked for 3 hours straight. His hands never stopped moving. Check the breathing. Stop the bleeding. Stabilize the spine. Move to the next patient. The medical station had only 5 doctors and 12 nurses. Everyone was running, shouting, trying to save lives. As the sun rose, the chaos finally began to slow down. Most of the critical patients were stable. Juno leaned against the wall, exhausted. His uniform was covered in blood and dirt. Hannah walked past, carrying clean bandages. Juno, there's one more, she said quietly. In base 7. Nobody else can take it right now. He followed her down the corridor. Bay 7 was the smallest treatment room, usually used for minor injuries. When Juno stepped inside, he stopped breathing for a moment. On the examination table lay a small creature, no bigger than a human child of 5 years old. Its body was covered in delicate blue-green scales that shimmered under the medical lights. 2 large golden eyes stared at the ceiling, not blinking. The creature's face was narrow and elegant, with a small snout and tiny ridges above the eyes. For limbs, each ending in 3 delicate claws. A long tail, currently limp and motionless. But what made Juno's chest tighten was the twisted angle of the creature's lower body. The back legs lay completely still. No movement. No response. What species? Juno asked, stepping closer. Valkyrie. According to the transport manifest, Hannah said, checking her tablet. 2 years old. Name is Kiro. Found in the cargo hold. Trapped under debris. Juno had heard of the Valkyrie, but he had never seen one before. They were rare. Very rare. He activated the medical scanner and ran it over Kiro's body. The results made his heart sink. Severe spinal trauma. Multiple fractures in the lower vertebrae. The neural pathways are damaged, Juno said softly. He looked at Kiro's face. The hatchling's eyes moved slightly, tracking Juno's movements. He's paralyzed. Hannah sighed. Can we do anything? I don't know, Juno admitted. I've never worked on a Valkyrie before. Their nervous system is completely different from humans or any of the common species. The hatchling made a soft sound. Not quite a chirp, not quite a whistle. It sounded sad and scared. One small clawed hand moved slightly, trembling. Juno reached out carefully and let his finger touch the hatchling's palm. Kiro's tiny claws wrapped around Juno's finger immediately, holding tight. The golden eyes focused on Juno's face, and the hatchling made another sound. This one sounded like a question. It's okay, Juno said gently, even though he knew the hatchling probably couldn't understand human language. You're safe now. Over the next hour, Juno worked carefully. He stabilized Kiro's spine with a temporary brace. He treated the cuts and bruises covering the small body. He set up in 4-line to provide nutrients and pain medication. All the while, Kiro watched him with those enormous golden eyes, never making a sound of complaint. Hannah returned with more supplies. The other doctors are asking if you need help. Tell them I've got this one, Juno said. He was studying the medical database on his tablet, searching for information about Valkyrie physiology. There wasn't much. A few basic anatomy charts. Some notes about their diet and temperature requirements. Almost nothing about their nervous system or healing capabilities. Juno, we have 43 other patients. Hannah said carefully. This one, the damage is extensive. Maybe we should focus on... No. Juno's voice was firm. He looked at Hannah. Every patient deserves a chance. I don't care if he's the only Valkyrie in this entire sector. I'm not giving up on him. Hannah studied his face for a moment, then nodded. All right, I'll help however I can. They moved Kiro to a private recovery room. It was small but comfortable, with a window showing the purple sky of Talon 4. Juno made sure the temperature was correct for a Valkyrie, adjusted the lights to a softer setting, and brought in a heating pad for the medical bed. Kiro lay very still, only his eyes moving. Juno sat down beside the bed and opened his research files. He would need to learn everything about Valkyrie biology. He would need to understand how their nerves worked, how their bones healed, what therapies might help. As he read, Kiro made another soft sound. Juno looked up. The hatchling was trying to move his tail. The effort was clear in every tense muscle of his small body, but the tail didn't respond. It lay limp and dead. Kiro stopped trying. His golden eyes grew dimmer, and he turned his face toward the wall. "Hey," Juno said softly. He moved his chair closer and gently touched Kiro's shoulder. "Look at me." The hatchling slowly turned his head back. "I'm going to help you," Juno said. He knew Kiro couldn't understand the words, but maybe he could understand the tone. "I'm going to find a way to fix this. I promise you, little one, you will walk again." Kiro stared at him for a long moment. Then, very slowly, the hatchling reached out with one small hand. His claws touched Juno's cheek, soft as feathers. The touch was gentle and trusting. In that moment, Juno felt the weight of his promise settle onto his shoulders. He didn't know if it was possible. He didn't know if Valkyrie's spinal injuries could heal. He didn't know if his skills would be enough. But he knew he would try. He would try with everything he had. 3 days passed. Juno barely left the medical station. He read every file he could find about Valkyrie. He contacted xenobiology experts across 3 different star systems, begging for information. He studied spinal injury treatments from dozens of different species, looking for anything that might work. Hannah brought him food that he forgot to eat. She brought him coffee that went cold on his desk. She checked on Kiro every few hours, making sure the hatchling was comfortable. Kiro was quiet most of the time. He accepted the food Juno offered, eating slowly. He watched the purple sky through the window. Sometimes he made soft chirping sounds, but they always sounded sad. On the 4th day, Juno made a breakthrough. He found a research paper written 50 years ago by a Valkyrie scientist. It was about neural regeneration in their species. The paper was incomplete, but it gave him hope. It showed that Valkyrie nerves could potentially regrow if given the right stimulation and support. Juno ran back to Kiro's room, the tablet clutched in his hands. The hatchling looked up when the door opened. "I found something," Juno said, smiling for the first time in days. "I think I can help you." Kiro tilted his head, confused by the sudden energy in Juno's voice. But when Juno sat down and gently took the hatchling's hand, Kiro chirped softly. This time, it didn't sound quite so sad. Outside the window, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Juno looked at them briefly, then back at Kiro. This small creature had survived a crash that killed dozens. He had survived hours trapped under debris. He deserved the chance to survive this too. Juno squeezed the small clawed hand gently. "We're going to do this together. You and me. I won't let you down." 2 weeks had passed since the crash. Juno spent every free moment in the research lab, surrounded by data screens and medical journals. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. Empty coffee cups covered his desk. Hannah had stopped telling him to go home because she knew he wouldn't listen. The problem was simple but impossible. Valkyrie nervous systems were nothing like human ones. Every treatment that worked for humans failed with Kiro. Every procedure Juno tried to design hit a dead end. The medical database had almost no information about Valkyrie healing. It was like trying to fix a machine without knowing how it worked. Juno rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the latest scan results. Kiro's spine showed tiny improvements, but not enough. The hatchling could feel touch on his lower body now, which was progress, but he still couldn't move his legs or tail. Every day, Juno saw the hope fading from those golden eyes. In the recovery room, Hannah was feeding Kiro his breakfast. The hatchling ate slowly, his small claws holding the special food bowl Juno had designed for him. Kiro had learned to understand some basic human words over the past 2 weeks. He knew food, water, sleep, and most importantly, Juno. Every time Juno entered the room, Kiro's entire body would perk up, his eyes would brighten, and he would make excited, chirping sounds. It broke Juno's heart because he still didn't have answers. "Morning," Juno said, walking in with his tablet. Kiro chirped happily and reached out. Juno took the small clawed hand and squeezed gently. "How's our patient?" Juno asked Hannah. "He tried to move again this morning," Hannah said softly. "Spent 20 minutes trying to lift his tail. Nothing happened." Juno looked at Kiro. The hatchling's eyes were sad now. He made a questioning chirp and pointed at his motionless legs. "I know, little one," Juno said. "I'm still working on it. I promise." That afternoon, everything changed. A ship docked at the station, and a man named Doyen Lee stepped out. He was tall and thin, with grease stains on his clothes and a large bag of tools over his shoulder. Doyen was a cybernetics engineer, one of the best in the sector. "I heard you have a problem," Doyen said, walking into Juno's lab without knocking. Juno looked up, surprised. "Who are you?" "Doyen Lee. I build things that help broken bodies work again." He dropped his tool bag on the floor with a heavy thud. "I heard about your Valkyrie patient. Paralyzed hatchling, right? Show me what you've got." Juno hesitated for only a moment before pulling up all his research on the main screen. Doyen studied the data in silence, his eyes moving fast across the information. He asked questions, smart questions, questions that showed he understood the problem. "The nervous system is the issue," Doyen said after 30 minutes. "You can't fix it with medicine alone. You need to rebuild the pathways." "How?" Juno asked. "I've tried everything." "With technology," Doyen said simply, "we create artificial neural bridges, small devices that carry signals from the brain to the legs. Combined with your medical treatments, it might work." Hope sparked in Juno's chest for the first time in days. "Can you really do that?" "Maybe," Doyen said. "I've never worked on a Valkyrie before, but the principle is the same. Let me meet the patient." They walked to Kiro's room together. The hatchling was awake, staring out the window as usual. When he saw Juno, he chirped a greeting. But when he saw the stranger, Kiro went quiet and pressed himself against the bed. "It's okay," Juno said softly. "This is Doyen. He's here to help." Doyen approached slowly, keeping his movements gentle. He studied Kiro with professional interest, not as a curiosity, but as a patient. After a moment, he smiled. "Hey there, small friend," Doyen said. "Those are some impressive scales. May I?" He held out his hand. Kiro looked at Juno, who nodded encouragingly. Slowly, the hatchling extended his small clawed hand. Doyen shook it carefully. "Nice to meet you," Doyen said. Then he looked at Juno. "He's smart. I can see it in his eyes." "That's good. He'll need to be patient for what comes next." Over the following week, Juno and Doyen worked together almost constantly. They designed a system of tiny electronic implants that would sit along Kiro's damaged spine. These devices would act like artificial nerves, carrying signals that Kiro's own damaged nerves couldn't transmit. The work was incredibly difficult. They had to account for Valkyrie biology, which was different in 1,000 small ways. The implants had to be small enough not to damage the delicate spine. They had to be powered by Kiro's own bioelectric field. They had to last for years, maybe decades. Hannah helped by keeping Kiro comfortable and entertained. She brought him picture books and small toys. She taught him more human words. Kiro learned to say Hannah, thank you, and surprisingly helped me. When Kiro said those words the first time, in his chirping accent but unmistakably clear, everyone in the room went quiet. The hatchling looked at Juno with pleading eyes. "Help me," Kiro repeated. Juno knelt down beside the medical bed. "I am helping you. We're building something special. Something that will make your legs work again." Kiro tilted his head, not fully understanding but trusting. Finally, after 10 days of preparation, they were ready for the first procedure. Juno explained everything to Kiro using simple words and drawings. He showed the hatchling pictures of the tiny devices. He explained that Kiro would sleep during the procedure and wake up with new helpers inside his body. Kiro listened carefully. Then he touched Juno's face with one small claw and chirped softly. It was a sound of trust. The surgery took 6 hours. Juno's hands were steady as he made the tiny incisions along Kiro's spine. Doyen guided each implant into place with microscopic precision. Hannah monitored all the vital signs, making sure Kiro stayed stable under anesthesia. When it was done, they moved Kiro back to his room and waited for him to wake up. Juno sat beside the bed, holding the small clawed hand. His own hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. "You did good work," Doyen said, standing in the doorway. "We don't know if it worked yet," Juno replied. "It will," Doyen said with confidence. "Give it time." Kiro woke up slowly as the sun was setting. His golden eyes opened and found Juno immediately. He made a questioning chirp. "The surgery is done," Juno said. "How do you feel?" Kiro thought about it. Then he chirped again, this time sounding confused. He looked down at his legs. "Try to move your tail," Juno said gently. "Just try. Don't force it." Kiro stared at his tail with intense concentration. Everyone held their breath. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing happened. The hope drained from Kiro's eyes. He looked at Juno and made a sad sound. "It's too soon," Juno said quickly. "The implants need time to connect properly. Your body needs to learn how to use them. This isn't failure, Kiro. This is just the beginning." But Kiro turned his face to the wall. He wouldn't look at anyone. He refused dinner. He lay completely still, and even when Hannah tried to comfort him, he didn't respond. That night, Juno didn't leave the room. He pulled a chair close to Kiro's bed and sat in the darkness. The hatchling was awake but silent. "I know you're disappointed," Juno said quietly. "I know this is hard, but I meant what I said. You will walk again. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you will." Kiro didn't move. "When I was young," Juno continued, "I got very sick. I couldn't walk for 6 months. Everyone said I might never walk again. But my mother sat with me every night, just like this. She told me that healing takes time. She was right." Slowly, very slowly, Kiro turned his head. His golden eyes found Juno in the darkness. "I'm not giving up on you," Juno said. "Ever. Do you understand?" Kiro stared at him for a long moment. Then, with great effort, the hatchling reached out his hand. Juno took it and held it tight. Outside, the stars were bright against the black sky. Inside the room, doctor and patient sat together in silence. Neither of them knew that in 3 days, everything would change. Neither of them knew that the implant were already beginning to work, slowly building new pathways through damaged nerves. All they knew was this moment, this promise, this bond that was growing stronger every day. 3 months had passed since the surgery. The medical station had settled into a routine. Patients came and went. The staff worked their shifts. But in room 7, something remarkable was happening so slowly that most people didn't notice. Kiro could feel his tail now. Not just touch, but actual sensation from the inside. He could feel the muscles, feel the bones. It was strange and wonderful and frustrating all at once because feeling wasn't the same as moving. Juno visited every morning before his shift started. He would sit with Kiro and they would practice together. The exercises were simple but exhausting. Juno would ask Kiro to try moving his tail. Just try. Don't force it. Just think about it moving. Most days, nothing happened. But Juno never showed disappointment. He would smile and say, "Good try. We'll practice again tomorrow." On day 93, everything changed. A new person arrived at the medical station. Her name was Minji Choi, and she was a physical therapist who specialized in rehabilitation for unusual species. She was short and energetic, with kind eyes and strong hands. Hannah had called her weeks ago, asking for help. "So this is our special patient," Minji said, walking into Kiro's room with a bright smile. "I've heard so much about you." Kiro looked up from his picture book. He had gotten good at reading simple human words now. He chirped a greeting. "Hello, Kiro," Minji said. She spoke slowly and clearly. "I'm Minji. I help people learn to walk. I'm going to help you too." Kiro looked at Juno, who was standing by the door. Juno nodded encouragingly. "Minji is very good at her job," Juno said. "She's helped hundreds of patients." "Can I examine you?" Minji asked Kiro, holding out her hands to show she meant no harm. Kiro nodded. He had learned that gesture from watching humans. Minji's examination was thorough but gentle. She tested reflexes. She measured muscle tone. She checked the flexibility of each joint. When she was done, she sat down beside the bed. "Your muscles are getting weak from not being used," Minji explained. "We need to make them strong again. Even before you can walk, we need to exercise them. Do you understand?" "Understand," Kiro said in his chirping voice. "Make strong." "Exactly," Minji smiled. That afternoon, they started therapy. Minji had brought special equipment designed for small patients. She showed Kiro how to do exercises while lying down. She moved his legs to the motions they would make while walking, teaching his brain to remember the patterns. It was hard work. Kiro's scales were damp with effort after just 15 minutes. But he didn't complain. He gritted his small teeth and kept trying. "Good job," Minji said. "That's enough for today. Tomorrow we'll do more." Every day, Minji came. Every day, Kiro worked harder. Juno often watched from the doorway, amazed by the hatchling's determination. Doyen visited twice a week to check the implants and make tiny adjustments. Hannah brought special foods to help build muscle. On day 107, Kiro's tail twitched. It was tiny, just a small movement, barely visible. But everyone in the room saw it. Minji gasped. Hannah dropped the water cup she was holding. Juno ran to the bedside. "Did you do that?" Juno asked, his voice shaking with excitement. "Kiro, did you move your tail?" Kiro stared at his tail with huge golden eyes. He looked confused and amazed. I think. "Try again," Minji said urgently. "Concentrate. Remember what it felt like." Kiro closed his eyes. His whole body tensed with concentration. Seconds passed. Then, slowly, deliberately, the tip of his tail moved again. This time there was no doubt. Kiro's eyes flew open. He made a sound that was half chirp, half laugh. "I did it. I moved." Juno grabbed the hatchling and hugged him carefully. "You did it. You really did it." The celebration lasted all evening. Even the other doctors came to congratulate Kiro. Someone brought cake from the station cafeteria. Kiro ate 3 pieces and made himself sick, but he didn't care. He kept moving his tail over and over just because he could. But that night, after everyone left, Kiro became quiet. Juno noticed and sat down beside the bed. "What's wrong?" Juno asked. "This is a good day." Kiro looked out the window at the stars. He had been doing that more and more lately. His small hand touched the glass. "Miss Family," Kiro said softly. "Miss Home." Juno's heart ached. In all the excitement of treatment and therapy, he had almost forgotten that Kiro had lost everything in the crash. The hatchling never complained, never cried about it. But of course he misses people. "Tell me about your family," Juno said gently. Kiro was quiet for a long moment. "Mother, father, sister, all gone now." "I'm so sorry," Juno said. "They would be happy," Kiro continued, still looking at the stars, "that I can move tail. They would be proud." "I'm sure they would be," Juno said, "and they would be proud of how brave you are." "When I walk again," Kiro said, turning to look at Juno, "I go find more Valkyrie, find family." Juno didn't know how to answer. He had tried searching for Valkyrie populations, but the information was sparse and confusing. He had sent messages to various galactic councils, but received few responses. "We'll look for them," Juno promised. "As soon as you're strong enough to travel, we'll look together." "Okay." Kiro nodded and seemed satisfied with that answer. "Okay. Thank you, Juno." After that night, Kiro's progress accelerated. It was as if moving his tail had unlocked something. Within 2 weeks, he could move both legs slightly. Within 3 weeks, he could bend his knees. By the end of the 4th month, he could pull his legs toward his chest. Minji designed new exercises every few days, each one harder than the last. Kiro attacked each challenge with fierce determination. Sometimes he pushed too hard, and Juno had to make him rest. The hatchling hated resting now. He wanted to be working, improving, getting closer to walking. "You'll hurt yourself if you don't slow down," Juno warned one day. "Need to be strong," Kiro insisted. "Need to walk. Need to find family." Juno exchanged worried looks with Hannah. They both knew that finding Kiro's family might be impossible, but they couldn't bring themselves to crush the hatchling's hope. On day 143, Minji made an announcement. "I think we're ready to try standing." Kiro's eyes went wide. "Really? Today?" "Today," Minji confirmed. She had set up special parallel bars in the rehabilitation center. They were low to the ground and padded. "We'll take it very slow. Juno and Hannah will support you. All you have to do is try to hold your weight. Don't worry about walking yet." Kiro was shaking with excitement as they helped him out of bed and into a special wheelchair. It was the first time he had left his room in months. The rehabilitation center was bright and spacious, with windows showing the purple sky outside. They positioned Kiro between the parallel bars. Juno stood on one side, Hannah on the other. Minji stood in front with her hands ready to catch him if he fell. "Whenever you're ready," Minji said. Kiro gripped the bars with his clawed hands. He took a deep breath. Then, with enormous effort, he tried to push himself up. His legs trembled violently. His tail whipped back and forth for balance. Sweat appeared on his scaled forehead, but slowly and possibly Kiro rose, first onto his knees, then, with one final push, onto his feet. He was standing. The room erupted in cheers. Doctors and nurses who happened to be nearby stopped to applaud. Doyen, who had come to watch, had tears in his eyes. Hannah was crying openly. Kiro stood for exactly 8 seconds before his legs gave out. Juno and Hannah caught him and lowered him gently back to the wheelchair. The hatchling was breathing hard, exhausted from those 8 seconds of effort, but he was smiling wider than Juno had ever seen. "I stood," Kiro said, his voice full of wonder. "I stood on my legs." "You did more than stand," Juno said, kneeling down to look Kiro in the eyes. "You proved that you're going to walk. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but soon." Kiro reached out and hugged Juno's neck. "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up." Juno hugged him back, careful of the small, fragile body. "Never," he whispered. "I'll never give up on you." Over the next 2 weeks, standing became easier. Kiro could hold himself up for minutes at a time. Then, on a sunny morning when the purple sky was particularly beautiful, Minji said the words everyone had been waiting for. "I think it's time to try walking." Kiro's whole body went rigid with anticipation. This was the moment he had dreamed about for 4 long months. The moment he had worked so hard for. The moment Juno had promised would come. They gathered in the rehabilitation center again. This time, even more people came to watch. It seemed like half the medical station staff had found excuses to be nearby. Kiro stood between the parallel bars, gripping them tightly. Juno stood close behind him, ready to catch him if needed. Minji stood at the end of the bars, 10 feet away. "Just 1 step," Minji said. "That's all I want. 1 step forward." Kiro nodded. He lifted his right foot slowly, so slowly. His whole body shook with the effort. The foot moved forward 6 inches and touched the ground. Then he shifted his weight onto that foot and lifted the left one. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. On the 4th step, Kiro's strength gave out completely. He collapsed forward, but Juno was there to catch him. The room exploded with applause and cheering so loud that people in other parts of the station came running to see what happened. Kiro was laughing and crying at the same time. "I walked. Juno, I walked." "You did," Juno said, his own voice thick with emotion. "You really did." That night, Kiro slept better than he had in months. In his dreams, he was running through fields under strange stars, his legs strong and fast. He was searching for something, for someone, his family, his people. But for now, this was enough. He could walk. The impossible had become possible. And tomorrow, he would try to walk even further. 6 months had passed since the crash. Kiro was running now, not just walking, but actually running through the corridors of Medical Station Harmony 7. His legs were strong. His tail helped him balance perfectly. When he moved, his blue-green scales caught the light and shimmered like water. The staff loved watching him play. He would chase rolling balls that Hannah threw for him. He would climb on the furniture in the recreation room. He had even started helping in the medical bay, carrying small supplies and making patients smile with his cheerful chirping. But every evening, Kiro would sit by the window in his room and stare at the stars. Juno knew what he was thinking about. Family, home, other Valkyrie somewhere out in the galaxy. Juno had sent 73 messages to different galactic councils, research stations, and colony registries. Most never responded. A few sent back automatic replies saying they had no information. 3 said they would look into it, but weeks passed with no updates. It was frustrating. Juno was a doctor, not a detective. He didn't know how to search for an entire species across the galaxy, but he had made a promise to Kiro, and he intended to keep it. Then, on a cold morning when frost covered the windows, a ship arrived at the station. It was small and official-looking, with government markings. A man stepped out carrying a data case and wearing the uniform of the Galactic Census Bureau. His name was Taejin Yoon. "I'm looking for Dr. Juno Kim," Taejin said to the first nurse he saw. "That's me," Juno said, walking up. "Can I help you?" Taejin's face was serious. Too serious. "Is there somewhere private we can talk?" A cold feeling settled in Juno's stomach. "My office. Follow me." They walked in silence. Juno closed the office door and gestured to a chair. Taejin sat down slowly, like the chair might break under him. He placed his data case on the desk, but didn't open it yet. "You've been sending inquiries about the Valkyrie species," Taejin said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Juno confirmed. "I'm caring for a Valkyrie patient. A hatchling. He wants to find his people." Taejin was quiet for a long moment. He looked down at his hands. "Dr. Kim, I need to tell you something. And I need you to understand that this information is extremely sensitive." "What is it?" Juno asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Taejin opened his data case and pulled out a tablet. The Valkyrie homeworld was destroyed 15 years ago. A stellar collapse. The star went supernova with almost no warning. The entire planet and everyone on it was lost. Juno felt like he'd been punched. How many survived? At the time of the collapse, there were approximately 9,000 Valkyrie living on various colony worlds, Taejin said. He pulled up a chart on his tablet. But the Valkyrie were already struggling as a species. Low birth rates. Genetic problems from a small population. They were considered endangered even before losing their homeworld. What happened to the colonies? Juno asked quietly. Taejin's expression grew even darker. Over the past 15 years, every single Valkyrie colony has fallen. Some to disease, some to economic collapse when they couldn't sustain themselves, some to wars they got caught in the middle of. The last colony, a small settlement called New Velker, was destroyed in a mining accident 8 months ago. 8 months, Juno repeated. The transport crash had been 6 months ago. The refugees... Yes, Taejin said. The transport that crashed here was carrying the survivors from New Velker. 37 Valkyrie in total. They were being relocated to a refugee facility. Juno's hands were shaking. How many survived the crash? Taejin looked him straight in the eyes. According to our records, 36 passengers died in the crash. 1 survived. The office was completely silent. Juno could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Your patient, Taejin said softly. Kuro, he's the only one. No, Juno whispered. That can't be right. There must be others. Somewhere in the galaxy. Someone who left the colonies early, or was traveling, or... We've checked everything, Taejin interrupted gently. Genetic databases, census records, immigration logs, travel manifests, medical registries. Dr. Kim, the Galactic Census Bureau has been tracking the Valkyrie population for years because we knew they were endangered. We have very accurate records. Taejin pulled up another document on his tablet. As of 3 days ago, when I finished compiling this report, there's exactly one Valkyrie registered as alive in the known galaxy. Age, 2 years old. Name, Kuro. Location, Medical Station Harmony 7. Juno put his head in his hands. He couldn't breathe properly. His mind was racing. Try to find a way this could be wrong. Try to find hope where there was none. He's the last one, Juno said. It wasn't a question anymore. Yes, Taejin confirmed. The last of his kind. Does anyone else know? A few people in the Census Bureau. And now you. Taejin leaned forward. Dr. Kim, this information needs to be handled very carefully. There are people who want to exploit Kiro. Scientists who want to study him like a specimen. Collectors who want to own the last Valkyrie. Activists who want to use him as a symbol. He needs to be protected. He's just a child, Juno said, his voice breaking. He's just a little boy who wants to find his family. I know, Taejin said quietly. And that's why I came here personally instead of just sending a report. I wanted to talk to you face to face. I wanted to make sure Kiro is in good hands. Juno looked up. What am I supposed to tell him? That's up to you, Taejin said. But he deserves to know the truth eventually. Not knowing, always hoping and searching, that might be worse than grief. After Taejin left, Juno sat alone in his office for 2 hours. He stared at the wall. He tried to imagine how to explain this to Kiro. How do you tell a child that he's alone in the universe? How do you tell him that everyone he came from, everyone like him, is gone? There was a knock on the door. Hannah opened it and looked in. Juno, Kiro is asking for you. He wants to show you that he can jump now. She saw his face. What's wrong? Juno told her everything. By the end, Hannah was crying silently. She sat down in the chair Taejin had used and put her face in her hands. That poor baby, she whispered. He asks about his family every day. I know, Juno said. What are you going to tell him? The truth, Juno said. Eventually, but not all at once. He's not ready. They sat together in silence for a while. Finally, Hannah stood up and wiped her eyes. He's waiting for you, she said. He's so excited to show you his jumping. Juno forced himself to stand. He walked to the recreation room, where Kiro was playing. The hatchling saw him immediately and ran over, his tail swishing happily behind him. Juno, watch this, Kiro said in his chirping voice. He backed up a few steps, then jumped into the air. It wasn't very high, maybe 6 inches, but for Kiro it was an amazing achievement. He landed perfectly and looked at Juno with huge, proud golden eyes. Did you see? I saw, Juno said, kneeling down. That was wonderful. Soon I'd be strong enough to travel, Kiro said. Then we find my family, yes? You promise. Juno pulled the hatchling into a hug, so Kiro couldn't see his face. Yes, we'll talk about your family. Soon. Good, Kiro said happily. He hugged Juno back, his small arms barely reaching around Juno's neck. You're a good friend, Juno. Best friend. You're my best friend, too, Juno said, his voice rough. That night, Juno couldn't sleep. He lay in his quarters staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow he would start the difficult process of helping Kiro understand. Tomorrow he would begin to break a child's heart with the truth. But tonight, just for tonight, he let Kiro keep his hope. He let him believe that somewhere out there a family was waiting. Because once that hope was gone, it could never come back. In his room, Kiro was also awake. He was looking out the window at the stars, counting them like he did every night. Somewhere out there, he thought his mother and father and sister were looking at the same stars. Somewhere out there, they were missing him just like he missed them. He would find them soon. Juno had promised, and Juno never broke his promises. Kiro smiled and finally closed his eyes. In his dreams, he was running across green fields toward open arms. In his dreams, he was going home. He didn't know that home didn't exist anymore. He didn't know he was the last. Not yet, but soon he would have to know. and everything would change. Juno spent 3 weeks preparing. He talked to specialists in child psychology. He read books about grief and loss. He consulted with Teijin about the best way to explain extinction to a child. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt like enough. But he couldn't wait forever. Kiro was asking more questions every day. When can we start looking? When can we travel? How long until we find them? Each question was a knife in Juno's heart. Finally, on a quiet afternoon, Juno decided it was time to begin. He sat down with Kiro in the recreation room, where they often spent time together. "Kiro, I need to talk to you about something important," Juno said gently. Kiro looked up from the puzzle he was working on. "About my family?" "Yes, but first, I need to explain some things." Juno took a deep breath. "Do you understand what death means?" Kiro tilted his head. "When someone stops living, like the plant Hannah forgot to water, it died." "Yes, exactly like that," Juno said. "When living things die, they don't come back. They're gone forever." "I know," Kiro said quietly. "My family died in the crash. I remember. The ship was breaking, and Mother pushed me into the safe corner. Then everything went dark." Juno's chest tightened. He hadn't known Kiro remembered the crash. "I'm so sorry that happened." "It's okay," Kiro said, though his voice was small. "They saved me. That's what parents do. But other Valkyrie are still alive. In other places. We just need to find them." This was the hard part. Juno knelt down so he was at Kiro's eye level. "Kiro, I've been searching for other Valkyrie for 6 months. I've sent messages everywhere. I've talked to many, many people." Juno paused, choosing his words carefully. "The Valkyrie people have had very hard times. Many years of bad things happening." "What kind of bad things?" Kiro asked. "Your home planet was destroyed a long time ago, before you were born. The Valkyrie who survived lived in different places, on different worlds. But those places had problems too. Sickness, not enough food, wars." Kiro's golden eyes were growing wider. "But some survived. Some must have. The last Valkyrie colony was where you lived, where your family lived. It was called New Velker." "Yes," Kiro said. "I remember. There were many of us. Lots of families." Juno felt tears building behind his eyes. "That colony had an accident. A very bad accident. The people on your transport ship. They were all the Valkyrie who survived that accident. They were going somewhere safe." Kiro stared at him. His small clawed hands gripped the edge of the table. "The crash," he whispered. "Yes," Juno said softly. "The crash." For a long moment, Kiro didn't speak. Then, very quietly, he asked, "How many lived?" Juno reached out and took one of Kiro's small hands. "You did. You're so strong and brave. You survived. How many others?" Kiro asked again. Juno couldn't lie. He had promised himself he would never lie to Kiro. No others from the ship. "But in other places," Kiro said desperately. "In the galaxy. Other Valkyrie somewhere." "Kiro," Juno said gently, squeezing the small hand. "A man came from the Census Bureau. They keep records of everyone. They searched everywhere. They looked very, very carefully. And..." Kiro's voice was barely a whisper. "You're the only one they found. The only Valkyrie in all the known galaxy." Kiro pulled his hand away. He stood up from his chair and backed away from Juno. His tail was rigid behind him. "No," Kiro said. "No, you're wrong. You didn't look hard enough. Kiro, check again." Kiro's voice rose. "Look more. They're out there. They have to be." "I'm so sorry," Juno said, standing up. "I wish I was wrong. I wish so much that I was wrong." Kiro made a sound that was half chirp, half sob. Then he turned and ran out of the room. Juno followed him, but Kiro was fast. He ran down the corridor, through the medical bay, and into his room. The door slid shut before Juno could reach it. Juno stood outside the door, listening to the sounds of Kiro cry inside. It was the most heartbreaking sound he had ever heard. He reached for the door control, then stopped. Maybe Kiro needed to be alone right now. For 3 days, Kiro stayed in his room. He accepted food from Hana, but wouldn't talk. He lay in his bed facing the wall. When Juno visited, Kiro wouldn't look at him. The staff was worried. Minji said this kind of grief could be dangerous for a child. Doyen suggested giving Kiro more time. Hana just cried every time she left his room. On the 4th day, Juno entered Kiro's room and sat down in his usual chair. "You're angry at me," Juno said. "I understand. I'm the one who told you. I'm the one who took away your hope." Kiro didn't move. "When I was young," Juno continued, "my parents died in an accident. I was angry at everyone. Angry at the doctors who couldn't save them. Angry at my friends who still had families. Angry at the universe for being unfair." Kiro shifted slightly. "My grandmother took care of me. And do you know what she said when I told her I was alone?" Juno leaned forward. She said that being alone and being lonely are different things. She said family isn't just the people you're born to. Family is the people who choose to love you. Slowly, Kiro turned over. His golden eyes were red and swollen from crying. "I'm the last one. The very last. When I die, there will be no more Valkyrie. Ever." "I know," Juno said. "That's a heavy thing to carry. Too heavy for anyone, especially someone as young as you. What do I do?" Kiro asked, his voice breaking. "Where do I go?" Juno took a deep breath. This was the question he had been preparing for. "I have an idea, but only if you want to. You can say no." Kiro sat up slowly. "What idea?" "You could stay here. With me. With us." Juno pulled out a tablet and showed Kiro a document. "These are adoption papers. They're legal documents that would make you officially my family. Not by blood, but by choice." Kiro stared at the tablet. "You want me?" "More than anything," Juno said, and he meant it with his entire heart. "You've been part of my life for 8 months now. I can't imagine my life without you anymore. You make me laugh. You make me proud. You make me want to be better." "But I'm Valkyrie," Kiro said. "You're human." "So what?" Juno said. "Does that matter?" Kiro thought about it for a long time. "My real family is gone." "Yes," Juno said honestly. "If I say yes, you'll be my family?" "Yes, and not just me. Hana, Minji, Doyen, everyone here. We all love you, even though I'm the last?" Kiro asked, "Even though there will never be more Valkyrie?" "Especially because of that," Juno said. "You deserve to be loved and cared for. You deserve to have a home and people who will protect you. Being the last doesn't make you less valuable. It makes you precious." Kiro was crying again, but these tears were different. He climbed out of bed and walked to Juno on his strong legs that had once been broken. He climbed into Juno's lap and buried his face in Juno's chest. "I'm scared," Kiro whispered. "I know," Juno said, holding him close. "But you don't have to be scared alone anymore. Will you really be my dad?" Juno felt tears running down his own face now. "If you'll let me?" Kiro was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded against Juno's chest. "Okay, yes, I want to stay." 2 weeks later, the adoption was official. The staff threw a celebration in the recreation room. Someone made a cake with blue frosting to match Kiro's scales. Everyone brought presents. Doyen gave Kiro a small tool set. Minji gave him running shoes designed for Valkyrie feet. Hana gave him a picture book about families of all kinds. Taejin came back for the celebration too. He brought something special, a data crystal containing every piece of information the Census Bureau had collected about Valkyrie history, culture, language, and science. "This is yours now," Taejin said, giving it to Kiro. "Everything we know about your people. Their stories, their art, their discoveries. As long as you remember them, they're not completely gone." Kiro held the crystal carefully, like it was made of glass. "Thank you." That night, after the party ended and everyone went home, Juno and Kiro sat together by the window. The stars were bright outside. "Dad," Kiro said. The word still sounded new and strange, but good. "Yes." "I'm still sad. About my people. About being the last." "That's okay," Juno said. "You can be sad and happy at the same time. Grief doesn't go away just because good things happen. I'll always miss them, Kiro said. I know, and I'll help you remember them. We'll learn about Velcari culture together. We'll make sure their memory stays alive. Kiro leaned against Juno's side. When you found me, my legs were broken. You promised I would walk again. I remember. You kept that promise, Kiro said. You kept it even when it was very hard. Yes. Can you promise something else? What? Juno asked. Promise that even though I'm the last, I won't be forgotten. That my life will mean something. Juno pulled Kiro closer. You already mean something. You mean everything to me. And I promise that your life will be full of love and purpose and joy. You're not just the last Velcari. You're Kiro. You're my son. And that's more than enough. Kiro smiled, a real smile that reaches golden eyes. Outside, the stars shine on. Inside, a human and a Velcari sat together. A family made not by blood but by choice. Not by chance but by love. Juno had saved Kiro's ability to walk. But in truth, they had saved each other. And that was the best ending either of them could have hoped for.